Welcome back to another beautiful day in the land of music. My name is Douglas, and in today's video, I wanted to walk you through my favorite B3 settings. I'm going to go through two settings here on the Roland V-Stage and just talk through why I like this type of a drawbar setup and a couple of examples of how I'll use these in a live situation. So let's initialize our scene by going into our menu, and I'm going to scroll over to scene and press down on my encoder to drop down to that lower level. Press down on edit, and then I'm going to move to the scene utility page and press down on my encoder to initialize this scene. It's not going to delete it. It's just going to kind of get us back to a blankish starting point. There's just some bass sounds that they put in these parts. Now I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not a B3 player by trade, something I've picked up along the way as I've played in shows, and it's kind of been out of necessity that I learned it, and I really like playing organs. It's just piano is my primary, organ's my secondary. So don't judge me too hard, but let's switch off our acoustic piano part and turn on our organ part. So on the organ part, we have our rotary speed, slow, fast, which is right here. I also have soft buttons that aren't in the video, but there are those big soft buttons underneath your pitch and modulation wheel. We can use those to turn the rotary speed slow, fast in the same way that we can do here in this rotary section here. So let's come into our organ tone select by pushing down on the tone select encoder. We're going to come over to Vintage 2, and I'm going to do Tone Wheel 2A. I like this one. So let's talk about drawbar settings. We have physical drawbars here, and really what these represent are the foot lengths of the pipes that would be in a traditional organ. If we push all of these back and I play, it's just kind of this, you're hearing the percussion. If I turn that off, we don't have anything. As I start to bring these forward, I get different tonal qualities, and what these are either thirds, fifths, or the root note or octaves of the root note. So if we look at the white ones and the very left-hand gray one, these are all octave variations. So the 8-foot is going to be our root note that we're playing. The 4-foot is going to be an octave above that. 2-foot is an octave above that. 1-foot is an octave above that, and 16-foot is an octave below. Notice there's no thirds or fifths in there. It's all octaves of my root note. Now when I start to bring in these other black and gray ones, this starts to introduce some thirds and fifths in there. That's a really big sound with all the drawbars pulled towards me or pulled out. So what I like to do is start with the first 3 drawbars. And then what I'll do is I'll take and scoop the rest of them just ever so slightly. And notice to the difference in the sound here. So depending on how much flutiness you want is how much I'll bring this scoop in and out. So as I'm playing, I'll keep it pretty low, and that gives me a nice warm, really it's these first three. Nice warm B3 tone. A variation you'll see sometimes is the first, second, and fourth pulled out. I've started to use that a little bit, and then I'll mix in that root note if I want to fill it in a little bit more, because what that's doing is it's essentially trading the root note with an octave higher from the root note. So it thins it out a little bit. So if you want something that's on the warmer side, but still, you know, kind of thin, listen to the difference. It's got just a little bit more of a fluty quality to it. And I kind of have started to use those interchangeably. I started off when I started playing B3s with the first three, a little bit of a scoop, and I liked that. But since then, I've kind of traded that. It's just sometimes it's a little fluty when we're in a lower, quieter part of the song, and I want to have just some organ underlying. So if I don't want it to cut through the mix, I'll go with the first three. And then as I need it to start cutting through more, I'll bring that scoop in more and more. So that's my favorite B3 setting, and I would say B3 settings because it's really that scoop, which I'll then bring the scoop part in and out, which kind of, you can form your finger nicely, you can grab those, and you can also bring those back. So as I'm playing, let's say they're back. So you can kind of mess with that as you're playing the song, and it's standing out a lot because I'm playing the organ solo. But mixed in with a whole band, you don't hear some of those nuances quite as much unless you're an organ player and those things stand out to you. So that's what I like to do for my B3 settings. The first three, a bit of a scoop, and then if I have a song where even starting out, I'm doing more of that, I want something that's going to cut through, I use the first, second, and fourth, which gives me that octave higher instead of the root note. And then I still utilize the scoop in that case. And then if I want to fill that in a little bit more, I'll start to bring in that third drawbar. You'll notice how it kind of fills that in a little bit more. So hopefully that was helpful. If you're starting out playing organs, you can try to figure out where the heck do I start with my drawbars. That's a good starting point, and then you can kind of tweak it from there depending on the song that you're trying to play. Now the other thing is, I don't generally have vibrato, chorus, or percussion on. You could go with a C3 chorus. It's got a little bit more of that chorusy, warbly type feel to it. For the songs that I play, I don't generally have that. I don't generally have drive on either. And then the percussion is something that I will turn on. Sometimes if I'm going into a solo, I'll flick percussion on, which just gives it a little bit more bite at the beginning. It's almost a belly, like down, down, down. So if I want it to stand out a little bit, have that bite to it, I'll do that. And then sometimes I'll bring drive in if I'm going into a solo or something where I want it to just push forward a little bit more. I'll use a drive. Gets a little bit harsh if you use too much drive. So those are my tips on what I like to do for B3 drawbar settings. Hopefully that was helpful, but if you have any questions, feel free to throw those down in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching, stay inspired, and keep making that music.